The whisper of silk against her skin was a prelude, a soft promise of the night to come. Ilara fastened the tiny pearl buttons of her blouse, each click a soft punctuation in the quiet hum of her elegant Art Deco apartment. Outside, the city began its nightly transformation, shedding the harsh light of day for the seductive glow of street lamps and neon. But inside, her world was bathed in the warm golden light of lamps, strategically placed to banish shadows and highlight the rich textures of her life. Tonight felt different. A tremor of anticipation, delicate yet persistent, had been stirring within her since morning. It wasn't an appointment, not a scheduled event, but rather an exquisite sense of destiny unfurling. She reached for the dress, a garment she rarely wore, saving it for occasions that demanded not just elegance, but a certain audacious confidence. It was velvet, a midnight blue so deep it verged on black, clinging to her curves with an almost liquid grace before falling in a shimmering column to the floor. The fabric itself was a caress, a second skin that promised warmth and allure. As she slipped it on, the material flowed over her, cool at first, then warming to her body, each ripple a sensual invitation. She paused before the mirror, letting her gaze sweep over her reflection. The dress was a masterpiece, its simple cut belying its power. It plunged just enough to hint at the hollow of her throat, revealed the graceful line of her collarbones, and sculpted her form without constraint. She ran a hand over the velvety surface, feeling its plush density, its subtle give. It was a fabric that absorbed light, then released it in a soft, diffused shimmer, a living thing. A final sweep of her hair, gathered loosely at the nape of her neck, a delicate silver chain around her throat, and a spritz of her signature jasmine and amber perfume, a scent that lingered warm and complex. She looked not merely ready, but utterly prepared for something extraordinary. The city beckoned, a symphony of distant sirens and muted traffic, a pulse she felt in her own veins. Her destination was the Obsidian Lounge, a place she frequented for its impeccable cocktails and the soulful strains of live jazz. It was a haven of hushed conversations, dark wood and plush seating, a sanctuary from the relentless pace of the world outside. Stepping into its dimly lit interior was like entering a different era, a time when elegance was not an aspiration, but an expectation. The maitre d' greeted her with a knowing smile, leading her to her usual banquette by the window, overlooking a rain-slicked street. The jazz band was already deep into a melancholic melody, the saxophone weaving a spell of longing and regret. She settled into the velvet cushion, its softness enveloping her, a luxurious echo of her dress. "A Sazerac, please, Henri," she requested, her voice a low murmur, blending with the music. She took a moment to simply breathe, to let the atmosphere wash over her. The scent of aged leather, fine whiskey, and a faint hint of cigar smoke mingled in the air, a sophisticated elixir. She watched the patrons, a tableau of sophisticated strangers, each lost in their own world, their own conversations. Yet, she felt a strange undercurrent, a tension in the air, as if the very fabric of the night was holding its breath. Her Sazerac arrived, a beautiful amber liquid in a chilled glass, garnished with a twist of lemon peel. The first sip was a revelation, the bite of rye, the sweetness of absinthe, the warmth spreading through her. It was a drink that demanded to be savored, much like the night itself. She was halfway through her drink when he walked in. It wasn't an entrance, not in the dramatic sense. There was no flourish, no sudden spotlight. He simply appeared in the arched doorway, framed by the subtle glow of the bar. Yet, every eye in the room, it seemed, was drawn to him. He was tall, with broad shoulders that filled out the charcoal gray of his suit with a quiet power. His dark hair was impeccably styled, falling just so over his forehead. But it was his presence, an aura of understated authority and deep intensity, that truly captivated. He scanned the room, his gaze moving slowly, deliberately, as if searching for something specific. And then, his eyes met hers. It was instantaneous, a jolt that went straight through her, bypassing all rational thought. Time seemed to warp, the jazz music fading into a distant hum. His eyes were the color of dark roasted coffee, deep and unyielding, yet within them she saw a flicker, a recognition that mirrored her own. A slow, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips, a private acknowledgement that was hers alone. He held her gaze for what felt like an eternity, a silent conversation passing between them across the crowded room. Then he broke contact, just for a moment, and made his way towards the bar. He ordered something, his voice a low rumble she couldn't quite discern, but the sound of it, even unheard, resonated within her. Ilara felt a flush creep up her neck, a delicious warmth spreading through her veins. She took another sip of her Sazerac, the glass cool against her lips, a stark contrast to the heat building inside her. She chastised herself for her uncharacteristic reaction, yet a part of her thrilled at the sudden, unexpected awakening. He didn't look at her again immediately, allowing her a moment to compose herself, to process the sudden shift in the evening's trajectory. She watched him from the corner of her eye, admiring the elegant line of his profile, the way his fingers rested on the rim of his glass. There was a quiet confidence about him, an assuredness that was deeply attractive. Then he turned, his drink in hand, and began to walk towards her table. Each step was measured, deliberate. Her heart hammered a rhythm against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the smooth velvet of her dress. He stopped beside her table, his shadow falling over her, enveloping her in a subtle veil of his presence. A faint scent of sandalwood, and something distinctly masculine, yet clean, reached her. "Forgive my intrusion," he said, his voice a rich baritone, exactly as she had imagined, deep, warm, with a silken edge that made the words feel like a caress. "But I couldn't help but notice you from across the room. You look breathtaking." His gaze was direct, unwavering, yet devoid of any trace of impropriety. It was a compliment delivered with genuine admiration, an observation rather than a flirtation, which made it all the more potent. "Thank you," Ilara replied, her voice a little breathier than she intended. She gestured to the empty seat opposite her. "Please, join me. It's rare to hear such direct honesty these days." A slow smile spread across his face, lighting up his eyes with an almost mischievous glint. "Julian," he offered, extending a hand. His fingers were long, strong, and when his skin met hers, a jolt, warm and electric, shot through her arm. His grip was firm, confident, and lingered for just a fraction of a second longer than strictly necessary. "Ilara," she responded, her name feeling foreign on her tongue as she spoke it. He settled into the seat, his presence filling the space between them, shrinking the world to just the two of them. He placed his drink on the small table, a dark amber liquid mirroring her own Sazerac. "Ilara," he repeated, the sound of her name on his lips, a soft, intimate whisper. "A beautiful name." "And Julian," she countered, meeting his gaze. "Strong and classic." He chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that seemed to vibrate through the very air around them. "So, Ilara," he began, leaning back slightly, "what brings you to the Obsidian tonight? A celebration? A quiet escape?" "A bit of both, perhaps," she mused, swirling the remaining liquid in her glass. The celebration of a quiet evening, the escape into the music. She looked at him, a question in her eyes. "And you, Julian, are you celebrating or escaping?" His gaze deepened, and for a moment, a flicker of something unreadable passed through his eyes, a shadow quickly gone. "Tonight?" he said, his voice dropping to an even lower register. "I think I might be celebrating the unexpected." He raised his glass slightly towards her, a silent toast. The jazz band shifted into a slower, more sensual piece, the piano taking the lead with a melody that spoke of yearning and tender intimacy. The music seemed to wrap around them, an invisible cocoon. "Unexpected is often the most delightful," Ilara murmured, her eyes tracing the rim of her glass. "The planned, the anticipated rarely hold the same thrill." "Indeed," Julian agreed, his voice a soft counterpoint to the music. "There's a certain magic in the spontaneous, isn't there? A willingness to let the current take you where it may." He leaned forward slightly, his elbow resting on the table, his gaze never leaving hers. "Do you often let the current take you, Ilara?" She met his gaze, a challenge and an invitation flickering in her eyes. More than I perhaps should. Life is too short to always stay on the shore, wouldn't you agree? Absolutely, he said, a genuine warmth emanating from him. The most breathtaking views are often found when you venture out into the unknown. He paused, his gaze dropping to her velvet dress, a subtle appreciation in his eyes. That dress, for instance, it speaks of a woman who understands beauty, who understands impact, a woman who is not afraid to venture. Ilara felt a thrill at his words, a delicious shiver that had nothing to do with the cool air from the window. It's a favorite piece, she admitted, her fingers unconsciously stroking the fabric over her knee. It has a certain presence. It does, Julian confirmed, his voice a low hum. Like the woman wearing it. The compliment, delivered with such sincerity and understated power, was disarming. It wasn't just about the dress. It was about her, about the unspoken connection that had sparked between them. The air around them crackled with an undeniable energy, a tension that was both exquisite and terrifying. They spoke for what felt like both minutes and hours, their conversation flowing effortlessly from art to travel, from philosophy to the subtle nuances of human connection. He was witty, intelligent, and possessed a quiet depth that drew her in. She found herself opening up to him, sharing thoughts and observations she rarely voiced to others. There was an intimacy in their exchange, an understanding that transcended mere words. His eyes, she discovered, had flecks of gold within their dark depths, catching the low light of the lounge. His hands, when they gestured, were expressive, strong, yet graceful. She noticed the slight crinkling at the corners of his eyes when he smiled, the way his voice deepened when he spoke of something he was passionate about. At one point, as he reached for his glass, his fingers brushed against hers. It was a fleeting contact, barely a touch, yet the warmth of his skin lingered on hers, sending a jolt of awareness through her. She felt her breath catch, and she quickly glanced away, trying to compose herself. But when she looked back, his eyes held a knowing glint, a silent acknowledgement of the spark that had passed between them. The band finished their set, and the lounge descended into a brief lull of quieter conversation before the next act began. The silence between them, however, was not awkward, but charged, pregnant with unspoken desires. Julian leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to a near whisper, intimate and compelling. "Ilara," he began, his gaze holding hers captive. "This conversation, this evening, it feels like something more than just a chance encounter." Her heart throbbed in response, a silent affirmation. "It does," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "It feels significant." "Significant," he echoed, a small private smile playing on his lips. "I like that. Perhaps," he continued, his eyes searching hers, "this significant encounter deserves a change of scenery, a place where we can truly connect, without the distractions of the world, however charming this one may be." Ilara's breath hitched. The invitation was clear, unspoken, yet utterly compelling. It was not a proposition, but a subtle, sensual suggestion, a deepening of the unspoken promise that had been simmering between them since their eyes first met. The velvet night outside beckoned, and with Julian, it felt like an adventure she was more than ready to embark on. She felt the exhilarating rush of fear and desire, a potent cocktail that left her breathless. She met his gaze, a slow, deliberate smile spreading across her lips. "I think," she said, her voice rich with anticipation, "that sounds like an excellent idea, Julian." He rose smoothly, extending his hand to her. His touch was warm, firm, as he helped her from the plush banquette. The velvet of her dress rustled softly as she stood, a soft whisper of impending intimacy. As she walked beside him, through the hushed elegance of the obsidian lounge and out into the cool, star-dusted city night, Ilara felt a profound sense of stepping into the unknown, a journey she knew, with every fiber of her being, was just beginning. The world outside, usually a blur of noise and light, felt suddenly sharp, alive, waiting. and she, in her midnight velvet, was ready for whatever secrets the night might reveal. The cool night air, sharp with the clean scent of rain-washed pavement and distant blossoms, enveloped Ilara as she stepped out. He, whose name she still didn't know but whose presence resonated with a profound, almost primal familiarity, guided her with a gentle hand at the small of her back. The touch was light, yet it sent a shiver of anticipation tracing a path down her spine, a silent acknowledgement of the unspoken current between them. A sleek, obsidian-black car, its polished surface mirroring the city lights like scattered diamonds, glided to the curb as if summoned by an invisible command. A discreet chauffeur, a ghost in the urban tapestry, opened the rear door. The interior was a hushed sanctuary of cream leather and polished wood, smelling faintly of old books and expensive cologne. As Ilara slid in, the velvet of her dress rustling against the soft upholstery, he followed, the subtle shift in the car's weight, the only indication of his entry. The door closed with a soft, definitive thud, sealing them into a world of their own. The city outside became a blur of luminous streaks, a vibrant tapestry of light and shadow. But within the car's luxurious confines, time seemed to slow, stretch, and deepen. He turned to her, a faint smile playing on his lips, his eyes, the color of aged whiskey, reflecting the passing streetlights. "Comfortable, Ilara?" His voice, a low, resonant murmur, was a question and an invitation, wrapping around her like the finest cashmere. "Perfectly," she replied, her voice a little breathier than she intended. She found herself unable to look away from his gaze, a magnetic pull that felt both exhilarating and strangely calming. "Though I confess, the mystery of our destination only adds to the allure." He chuckled softly, a sound that vibrated through the quiet space, a warm chord striking deep within her. Mystery, Ilara, is often the most exquisite prelude. Some journeys are best savored with a sense of wonder. He reached out, his long fingers elegant and unhurried, to pluck an invisible fleck from her velvet sleeve. The brief, feather-light brush of his knuckles against her forearm was enough to send a jolt through her, a spark of electricity that spread through her veins. His touch lingered for a fraction of a second longer than strictly necessary, a silent promise, a delicious hint of things to come. "And where are we going then, my enigmatic guide?" she pressed, a playful challenge in her tone, yet her heart thrumming with a delightful nervousness. "Somewhere we can truly speak," he said, his gaze deepening, "where the city's symphony won't interrupt our own quiet cadence. Somewhere private." He didn't elaborate, and she found she didn't want him to. The ambiguity was intoxicating, weaving a delicate spell of anticipation around her. The car moved with a liquid grace, taking them away from the vibrant pulse of the city's main arteries, up into quieter, more exclusive enclaves. The buildings grew taller, more imposing, their windows gleaming like watchful eyes against the inky sky. Ilara found herself tracing the delicate curve of her collarbone, a nervous habit she hadn't realized she still possessed. This man, this elegant stranger, had a way of unraveling her, layer by careful layer, without ever truly touching her. Finally, the car pulled into a discreet, illuminated driveway, coming to a silent stop before the grand, understated entrance of a soaring modern edifice. Glass and steel gleamed under the moon, a monument to contemporary elegance. A doorman, impeccably dressed, appeared as if from the shadows, opening the car door with a deferential nod. As Ilara stepped out, she felt a sudden lightness, a sense of having shed the last vestiges of her everyday self. This night, this man, this journey, felt utterly separate from anything she had known before. He was beside her immediately, his hand once more at her back, guiding her into the hushed lobby. It was a space of minimalist grandeur, polished marble floors reflecting soft, recessed lighting, abstract art adorning pristine walls, and a faint, sophisticated scent of sandalwood and leather. They rode a private elevator, its interior a sleek expanse of dark wood and brushed metal. As the doors closed, sealing them in, Ilara felt the subtle shift in the air pressure, a gentle ascent that mirrored the rising tide of excitement within her. The silence in the elevator was profound, broken only by the soft hum of the machinery. She looked at him, and he returned her gaze, a slow, knowing smile spreading across his face. His eyes, in the intimate glow of the elevator, seemed to hold a galaxy of unspoken thoughts, desires, and promises. "Julian," he said, the name a soft revelation, a gift given in the quiet space. "My name is Julian." "Julian," she repeated, tasting the name on her tongue, finding it utterly fitting. Strong, classic, with a hint of something artistic and deeply sensual. "It suits you." The elevator chimed softly, and the doors glided open, revealing a breathtaking vista. They had arrived at a private penthouse, and the entire city lay spread out before them, a glittering carpet of lights stretching to the horizon. The apartment was vast, an expanse of polished concrete floors, soaring ceilings, and walls of glass that offered an uninterrupted panorama. The dominant palette was a sophisticated blend of charcoal, cream, and deep indigo, punctuated by rich textures, velvet, silk, and raw wood. A fire crackled softly in a suspended modern fireplace, casting a warm dancing glow across the room. "Welcome, Ilara," Julian said, his voice imbued with a quiet pride as he gestured expansively. "My sanctuary. I hope it meets with your approval." Ilara walked further into the space, drawn by the sheer magnificence of the view, feeling as though she were floating above the world. She approached the floor-to-ceiling windows, her fingers brushing the cool glass. The city below pulsed with life, yet up here, there was a profound sense of peace, a cocoon of luxury and quietude. "It's extraordinary, Julian," she breathed, genuinely awestruck. "Like being in a dream." He came up behind her, his presence warm and palpable, not quite touching, yet close enough that she could feel the subtle heat radiating from him, smell the faint, intoxicating scent of his cologne. "A dream, perhaps," he murmured, his voice close to her ear, sending another delicious shiver through her. "But a very real one. And tonight, Ilara, it's ours." He moved away then with a grace that was almost feline, heading towards a discreet bar area. "May I offer you something? A rare vintage, perhaps? Or something chilled and sparkling?" "A glass of champagne would be lovely, thank you," she said, turning to watch him. He moved with an effortless elegance, his dark suit perfectly tailored, emphasizing the lean strength of his frame. He uncorked the bottle with a soft pop, the sound a gentle punctuation in the quiet room. The effervescent liquid poured into two delicate flutes, catching the firelight and sparkling like liquid starlight. He handed her a glass, their fingers brushing again, a brief, electrifying contact. Her gaze met his over the rim of the glass as she took a slow sip, the cool, crisp bubbles dancing on her tongue. "To exquisite preludes," he said, raising his glass, his eyes never leaving hers. "To journeys just beginning," she replied, her voice soft, her heart fluttering. They moved to a large, plush sofa, its deep velvet cushions inviting. The fire crackled companionably, and a soft ambient jazz played almost imperceptibly from hidden speakers, a soulful saxophone weaving a spell of sophisticated melancholy. Ilara settled into the cushions, feeling the luxurious softness envelop her. She found herself relaxing, a warmth spreading through her, partly from the champagne, partly from the sheer beauty of her surroundings, and undeniably, largely from Julian's captivating presence. They talked for what felt like hours, yet time seemed to lose all meaning. Julian spoke of his travels, of art and literature, of the subtle nuances of human connection. He listened intently when she spoke, his gaze unwavering, making her feel utterly seen, utterly heard, in a way she rarely had before. She found herself sharing thoughts, dreams, and vulnerabilities she hadn't realized she possessed, drawn out by his perceptive questions and genuine interest. He spoke with a quiet passion, his hands occasionally gesturing, long and expressive, his fingers brushing the air, as if to shape his words. "There's a certain magic in the city at night, isn't there?" Julian mused, setting his empty glass down on a low, polished stone table. "Especially from up here. It's like watching a living, breathing organism, yet feeling utterly detached, utterly at peace within its embrace." "It's true," Ilara agreed, her voice a soft murmur. She was mesmerized by the interplay of firelight and city glow on his features, the way it sculpted the planes of his face, making him seem both intensely real and almost ethereal. It makes you feel as though anything is possible, that the ordinary rules simply don't apply. He turned to her fully then, the distance between them on the sofa suddenly feeling vast, yet charged with an almost unbearable tension. "And what rules, Ilara, would you wish to suspend tonight?" he asked, his voice dropping to a low, intimate tone that seemed to wrap around her very soul. His gaze was intense, searching, yet also incredibly gentle, inviting her to reveal her deepest desires. Ilara felt a flush rise to her cheeks, a delicious heat spreading through her. Her heart quickened its rhythm, a drumbeat against her ribs. She took a slow breath. The scent of him, that subtle, sophisticated cologne, filling her senses. "Perhaps," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "the rule that dictates we must remain strangers." A slow smile spread across Julian's face, a smile that reached his eyes and made them sparkle with a hidden warmth. He leaned closer, the movement fluid and deliberate, bridging the space between them. Her breath hitched in her throat. The world outside the glass walls, the glittering city, the distant hum of traffic, all faded into insignificance. There was only the warmth of the fire, the soft jazz, and the magnetic pull of Julian's gaze. "I believe," he murmured, his voice a silken thread, "that rule has long since been broken." His hand, warm and strong, reached out, not to touch her face, but to gently cup her elbow, his thumb stroking the soft velvet of her sleeve. It was a gesture of exquisite restraint, yet it spoke volumes, promising a deeper intimacy. Ilara felt the subtle heat of his touch through the fabric, a slow burn that spread through her arm, up to her shoulder, and then cascaded down her entire body. Her gaze dropped to his lips, full and perfectly sculpted, and a sudden undeniable yearning bloomed within her. The air between them crackled with an unspoken electricity, a silent conversation of desire and anticipation. He continued to stroke her arm, his touch light, almost reverent, as if she were the most delicate and precious of creations. "You, Ilara, are a symphony in midnight velvet," he whispered, his voice husky with emotion. "Every curve, every line, an invitation to discover. I've been watching you, truly watching you, since the moment you stepped into the lounge. And with every word you've spoken, every flicker of emotion in your eyes, I've found myself drawn deeper into your beautiful complexity." His words, spoken with such sincerity and passion, sent a wave of warmth through her, a blush that spread from her chest to her cheek. She felt a profound sense of being cherished, admired, desired, in a way that transcended mere physical attraction. It was a recognition of her very essence, her spirit. "Julian," she managed, her voice a mere breath, thick with emotion. Her eyes, wide and luminous, met his, reflecting the firelight. She felt utterly vulnerable, yet utterly safe, utterly ready. He leaned in further, his head tilting, his gaze still fixed on hers, a silent question, an unspoken request. The subtle scent of his skin, mingled with his cologne, enveloped her, drawing her deeper into his orbit. She could feel the warmth radiating from his body, the gentle brush of his breath against her cheek. Her own breath hitched, suspended in the intoxicating anticipation. His thumb continued its slow, hypnotic caress on her arm, a rhythm that echoed the beat of her own heart. He moved even closer, his eyes dropping to her lips, then back to her eyes, seeking permission, seeking an answer to the silent question that hung in the air between them. Ilara's response was not in words, but in the slight parting of her lips, the subtle tilt of her head, an unspoken surrender to the powerful current that flowed between them. He closed the final distance, slowly, deliberately. His lips, soft and warm, brushed against hers, a feather-light touch that was both exquisitely tender and intensely sensual. It was a promise, a sigh, a whispered invitation. He didn't rush, didn't demand. Instead, he allowed the moment to expand, to linger, letting the sheer anticipation build to an almost unbearable crescendo. Ilara's eyes fluttered closed, savoring the exquisite sensation, the soft pressure against her lips. She felt a profound sense of coming home, of finding a connection she hadn't known she was searching for. His hand, still on her arm, tightened almost imperceptibly, a gentle anchor in the swirling current of emotion. The kiss deepened then, slowly, languidly. A soft exploration, a gentle tasting. His lips moved against hers with a tender hunger, a delicate dance that stirred a deep, aching warmth within her. She responded with an instinctive grace, her own lips parting slightly, inviting him in. A soft moan escaped her throat, a sound she hadn't realized she was capable of, a pure expression of yearning. His free hand, with a touch that was both gentle and possessive, moved from her elbow, gliding up her arm over her shoulder, and then settled at the nape of her neck, his fingers tangling lightly in the soft curls of her hair. He pulled her closer, just slightly, deepening the kiss, allowing their bodies to press together, the velvet of her dress a soft barrier against the warmth of his suit. The kiss was a revelation, a silent conversation of burgeoning passion, a promise whispered from soul to soul. It was tender, yet infused with an undeniable heat, a slow, intoxicating burn that left her breathless, her senses reeling. She felt utterly consumed by the moment, by him, by the intoxicating rush of emotion and desire. The world outside, the glittering city, the elegant apartment, all faded away, leaving only the exquisite sensation of his lips on hers, the soft caress of his fingers in her hair, the deep, resonant hum of their burgeoning connection. When he finally pulled back, it was only by a fraction, his forehead resting against hers, his eyes still closed, a soft sigh escaping his lips. She could feel the rapid beat of his heart against her own, a shared rhythm that resonated deep within her. He opened his eyes, and they were dark, luminous, filled with a raw, undeniable emotion that mirrored her own. "Ilara," he breathed, her name a prayer on his lips, his voice husky with desire. "You are magnificent." Her fingers, almost unconsciously, rose to cup his cheek, her thumb stroking the soft stubble of his jawline. His skin was warm, vibrant beneath her touch. She couldn't speak, her throat tight with emotion, but her eyes, wide and eloquent, conveyed everything she felt, the wonder, the yearning, the boundless anticipation. He leaned in again, not for another kiss, but to press his lips gently to her temple, then to her cheek, and finally lingered at the sensitive hollow beneath her ear, sending fresh shivers through her. "There's so much more I want to discover about you," he whispered, his breath warm against her skin. "So much more I want to share." He pulled back fully then, though his hand remained at her neck, his thumb still tracing gentle patterns on her skin. He looked at her, his gaze filled with a profound tenderness, a respect that deepened the burgeoning passion. "This velvet?" he murmured, his eyes sweeping over her dress. "It's a beautiful secret, isn't it? A promise of softness beneath the midnight elegance." Ilara felt the warmth of his gaze, the unspoken suggestion, and a delicious thrill ran through her. The velvet, which had felt like a second skin, now felt like a tantalizing barrier, an elegant challenge. She imagined the feel of his hands on her bare skin, the contrast of his touch against the softness of her own. Her body hummed with a quiet, insistent longing. He rose slowly, his hand gently releasing her. He walked to the vast glass wall, his back to her, looking out at the glittering city. "The night is still young, Ilara," he said, his voice thoughtful. "And we have barely begun to explore its depths, or our own." He turned back to her, his silhouette framed by the city lights, his eyes gleaming with a quiet intensity. "Would you like to continue this journey, Ilara? To truly step into the unknown?" Her heart pounded in her chest, a joyful, eager rhythm. She knew, with every fiber of her being, that there was only one answer. The journey she had sensed was just beginning, was now unfolding before her, rich with promise, steeped in a sensual mystery. The world outside, though still sparkling, felt distant, irrelevant. Her world was here, in this elegant sanctuary with Julian, and the intoxicating secrets that the night, and their burgeoning connection, were waiting to reveal. She met his gaze, a silent affirmation, a breathless invitation of her own. The midnight velvet, a whisper of impending intimacy, waited with her, poised on the brink of discovery. He extended his hand, an unspoken invitation, a gesture that spanned the distance between them. Ilara placed her own hand in his, her fingers intertwining with his strong, warm ones. The touch was firm, reassuring, yet charged with a delicate power that made her entire being hum. He pulled her gently to her feet, drawing her closer until they stood face to face, the glow of the firelight bathing them in a soft, golden embrace. The city lights, a myriad of distant stars, seemed to watch them from beyond the glass. Julian's gaze swept over her, lingering on her lips, her eyes, the gentle curve of her neck, before returning to meet her own. "There's a terrace," he murmured, his voice a low thrum against the quiet hum of the apartment, "just off the master suite. It's where I often go to watch the sunrise, or perhaps to simply feel the night air on my skin when the city sleeps." He didn't need to say more. The implication was clear, a gentle suggestion, yet one that sent a fresh wave of heat through Ilara. "The master suite." The words themselves were a soft caress, a prelude to a deeper unveiling. The thought of stepping into that private space, of sharing that intimate sanctuary with Julian, filled her with a thrilling blend of apprehension and eager anticipation. It felt like a threshold, a crossing into a new chapter of the night, where the boundaries of their acquaintance would blur, giving way to something far more profound. His hand remained entwined with hers, a steady anchor, as he began to lead her through a subtly arched doorway that led away from the main living area. The lighting in this corridor was even softer, creating pools of warm light and long, alluring shadows. The walls were adorned with more art, abstract pieces that spoke of fluidity and emotion, mirroring the journey she was on. She noticed a faint, lingering scent of jasmine, and something distinctly masculine, a subtle difference from the sandalwood and leather of the lobby, hinting at the personal space they were entering. As they walked, her velvet dress brushed softly against her legs, a whisper of luxury and expectation. Each step felt deliberate, a conscious choice to follow this path, to trust this man whose eyes held so much depth, whose touch ignited such a potent fire within her. The quiet jazz music from the living room faded slightly, replaced by the soft, almost imperceptible sound of their own footsteps on the polished floor. They passed by a room where Ilara glimpsed a vast, dark wood desk, illuminated by a single, elegant lamp, piled with books and papers, a hint of Julian's intellectual world. A side of him she found even more intriguing. But he didn't pause, his focus entirely on her, on the destination ahead. Finally, he pushed open a tall, unassuming door, and they stepped into the master suite. It was a space designed for ultimate comfort and sensuality, yet with the same elegant restraint that characterized the rest of the penthouse. The dominant feature was a vast, low-slung bed, dressed in crisp white linen, and an abundance of plush charcoal gray pillows. A large, abstract painting in deep blues and silvers adorned the wall above the headboard, reminiscent of a moonlit ocean. Soft, indirect lighting cast a warm, inviting glow, creating an atmosphere of serene intimacy. But it was the terrace, visible through another set of floor-to-ceiling glass doors, that truly captivated Ilara. Beyond it, the city lights shimmered, a living jewel box, and above the vast, inky expanse of the night sky was dusted with a million stars. Julian led her directly to the terrace doors, his hand still holding hers. He pushed them open, and the cool, fresh night air, slightly crisper at this height, rushed in, carrying with it the distant murmur of the city below. They stepped out onto the wide, expansive terrace. It was sparsely furnished with a pair of sleek, comfortable lounge chairs, and a low table, all crafted from dark, weather-resistant wood. Lush, potted greenery softened the edges, adding a touch of natural vitality. He released her hand, moving to stand beside the railing, looking out at the sprawling panorama. Ilara joined him, her arms resting on the cool, smooth metal. The silence here was profound, broken only by the gentle breeze and the faint, almost melodic hum of the city, a lullaby of urban life. "It's breathtaking," Ilara whispered, her voice filled with wonder. The sheer scale of it, the feeling of being perched atop the world, was both humbling and exhilarating. Julian turned to her, his profile illuminated by the ambient glow of the city. "I find solace here," he said, his voice soft, reflective. "A place to gain perspective, to remember that even in the midst of chaos, there is always beauty, always a quiet strength." His gaze drifted from the city lights to her, warm and encompassing. "And tonight, Ilara, your beauty adds another layer of magic to this view." Her cheeks flushed at his compliment, a warmth that spread through her, making her feel incandescent beneath the midnight velvet. She found herself unable to break his gaze, lost in the depth of his eyes, which seemed to hold the very stars reflected within them. "This dress," he murmured, his voice dropping to a seductive whisper, "it truly is magnificent, but I have a feeling that what lies beneath is even more so." His words were a soft invitation, a gentle dare, without a hint of demand. He left the choice entirely to her, trusting her desire, her readiness. Ilara felt the blood rush through her veins, a delicious heat spreading throughout her body. The velvet, which had felt like her armor, now felt like a tender barrier, a playful challenge. She imagined the feel of the cool night air on her skin, the freedom of shedding the confines of the fabric. Her heart beat a rapid tattoo against her ribs, a rhythm of pure, unadulterated yearning. She took a slow, deliberate breath, her eyes still locked with his. The moment stretched, vibrant with unspoken desires, with promises hovering in the air like sweet perfume. Then, with a subtle, graceful movement, she reached for the hidden zipper at the back of her dress. Julian watched her, his gaze unwavering, his expression a mixture of profound anticipation and tender admiration. He didn't move, didn't speak, simply allowed her to take the lead, to set the pace of this exquisite dance. The soft rasp of the zipper, a delicate sound in the vast stillness of the night, seemed amplified, each tiny tooth a promise of revelation. As the zipper descended, the velvet began to loosen, to fall away from her shoulders, revealing the smooth, luminous skin beneath. The cool night air kissed her bare skin, sending a delicious shiver through her, a sensation of release and vulnerability. She let the dress slide down, slowly, deliberately, a midnight waterfall pooling at her feet, leaving her standing before him in nothing but the delicate lace of her lingerie, a vision of moonlit alabaster and shadow. A soft sigh escaped Julian's lips, a sound of pure appreciation, of profound desire. His eyes, dark and intense, devoured every curve, every line, every inch of her revealed form. Yet, there was no possessiveness in his gaze, only reverence, a deep and abiding admiration. He reached out, his hand moving slowly, almost hesitantly, as if seeking permission even now. His fingers, long and elegant, brushed against her bare shoulder, a touch so light it felt like a whisper, yet it ignited a fiery trail across her skin. He leaned in, his lips close to her ear, his breath warm against her skin. "Exquisite," he murmured, his voice husky with emotion. "Even more magnificent than I imagined." Ilara shivered, not from the cold, but from the intoxicating pleasure of his words, of his touch. She felt utterly beautiful, utterly desired, utterly alive. Her own hand rose, almost instinctively, to cup his cheek, her thumb stroking the soft skin just beneath his eye. The connection between them, already so potent, deepened further, becoming a tangible, vibrating force. "Julian," she breathed, her voice a soft plea, a whispered invitation. He met her gaze, his eyes burning with a controlled fire, a passion held in check by a deep respect. He didn't rush, didn't demand. Instead, he allowed the moment to unfurl, a delicate blossom opening slowly under the moonlit sky. He lowered his head, his lips brushing against her temple, then her cheek, moving slowly, deliberately, until they hovered just above hers. The air between them crackled with an almost unbearable tension, a promise of sweet surrender. "My Ilara," he whispered, his lips finally settling on hers, a kiss that was both tender and hungry. A slow, deep exploration that left her breathless, her senses reeling. The world tilted, the city lights spun, and there was only the exquisite sensation of his mouth on hers, his arms wrapping around her, drawing her close against the warmth of his body. The journey had truly begun, and Ilara, in her silken lace, and the cool embrace of the night, was ready for every delicious secret it held. His kiss deepened, a promise and a question all at once, and Ilara answered with a soft sigh that was swallowed by his mouth. His hand, warm and firm, slipped from her waist to cup the curve of her hip, pressing her closer still, until the exquisite friction of her silk against his tailored trousers was an electric current between them. The scent of him, crisp linen, a hint of spice, and something uniquely masculine and compelling, filled her senses, intoxicating her more profoundly than any champagne. He pulled back just an inch, his eyes dark and fathomless in the ambient glow, searching hers. "Ilara," he murmured, her name a tender caress on his lips. "Are you ready to truly begin?" Her heart hammered a fierce rhythm against her ribs. She didn't need to ask what he meant. The air between them thrummed with unspoken desires, with a longing that had been building for weeks, perhaps even months, in stolen glances and lingering touches. She simply nodded, her gaze locked with his, a silent affirmation of her deepest yearning. With a gentle tug, he guided her away from the railing, back into the warmth of the penthouse. The city lights, once a dizzying spectacle, now seemed to recede, becoming a soft, blurred backdrop to the intimate universe they were creating. He led her, not to the opulent living space, but to a quieter, more secluded part of the apartment. A sumptuous master suite she hadn't yet explored. The room was a symphony of hushed luxury. Deep sapphire and silver tones, plush rugs that absorbed the sound of their footsteps, and a vast four-poster bed draped in sheer, flowing fabrics that promised untold comforts. Soft, indirect lighting cast a golden glow, making every surface gleam, every shadow dance with subtle invitation. A low, soulful jazz melody, almost imperceptible, seemed to emanate from the very air itself. He stopped in the center of the room, turning to face her, his hands still resting lightly on her hips. His thumbs traced slow, mesmerizing circles against the delicate lace of her dress, sending shivers through her. His gaze, unhurried and intensely focused, took her in, from the crown of her head to the tips of her toes, a silent homage that made her feel utterly seen, utterly cherished. "You are breathtaking, Ilara," he said, his voice a low, gravelly whisper that sent a delicious tremor through her. He lifted a hand, his fingers tracing the line of her jaw, then weaving into the loose waves of her hair, tilting her head gently upwards. And then he kissed her again, a deeper, more consuming kiss this time. It was a kiss that spoke of patience and passion, of a desire that had been held in check but was now unleashed. Her lips parted beneath his, inviting him in, and his tongue met hers in a slow, sensual dance that mirrored the rhythm of their accelerating heartbeats. She tasted him, the subtle tang of expensive whiskey, the sweet, musky flavor of his own arousal, and it was intoxicating. His hands moved from her hips, trailing upwards along her sides, beneath the delicate lace of her dress, until his fingertips brushed the bare skin of her waist. A gasp caught in her throat as his touch ignited a fiery path, searing through the silk, leaving her skin tingling in its weight. She arched into him, pressing her body against his, her arms winding around his neck, her fingers tangling in the soft hair at his nape. The urgency in her grew, a pulsing throb deep within her core. He broke the kiss again, his breath warm against her cheek, his forehead resting against hers. "Let me," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion, and she knew he was asking for permission, for her complete surrender. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her eyes, wide and luminous, shone with an answering fire, a fervent yes that echoed through the quiet room. His gaze never leaving hers. He slowly, deliberately, reached for the delicate straps of her dress. With an exquisite tenderness, his fingers brushed against her collarbone, then slid along the satin ribbon, unfastening the tiny pearl button that held the strap in place. One strap fell, revealing the soft curve of her shoulder, the creamy expanse of skin. Then the other. The silken lace dress, now unanchored, began its slow descent. He knelt before her, his movements graceful and unhurried, and with a reverence that stole her breath, he gathered the shimmering fabric, easing it down over her breasts, past her waist, over her hips. The cool air brushed against her skin as the dress pulled around her feet, a silken halo. She stood before him in nothing but delicate lace briefs, feeling utterly exposed, yet utterly adored. His eyes, dark and appreciative, devoured her. He reached out, his fingers tracing the delicate lace that adorned her briefs, barely grazing her skin, yet sending shivers of anticipation through her. "Magnificent," he whispered, his voice hoarse with desire. He rose slowly, his gaze still holding hers, and then with a decisive movement, he reached for the buttons of his own shirt. One by one they gave way, revealing glimpses of the taut muscle of his chest, the dark hair that dusted it. He shrugged off the jacket, letting it fall to the floor with a soft thud, then pulled his shirt free from his trousers, peeling it away from his broad shoulders. He tossed it aside, revealing his magnificent torso, sculpted, powerful, a testament to disciplined strength. Ilara's breath hitched. She had seen him in suits and casual wear, but never like this. The sheer raw masculinity of him, the expanse of his chest, the defined lines of his abdomen, was breathtaking. Her fingers itched to touch him, to feel the warmth of his skin against hers. He met her gaze, a knowing smile playing on his lips, as if he could read her thoughts. Then, he unzipped his trousers, and with a fluid motion, stepped out of them, along with his boxer briefs, leaving him entirely unadorned. Ilara's eyes widened, a flush rising to her cheeks, but she didn't look away. He stood before her, a vision of masculine perfection, his body a testament to strength and grace. The sight of his full arousal sent a jolt of pure, unadulterated desire through her, a primal urge that seized her and left her trembling. He reached for her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers, and led her towards the bed. The mattress sagged softly as they sat on the edge, their knees brushing, the silent language of their bodies speaking volumes. He gently urged her to lie back, and she complied, sinking into the plush pillows, the soft sheets cool against her heated skin. He moved above her, his weight supported by his strong arms, his eyes never leaving hers. The jazz music seemed to swell, a sensual backdrop to the intimate tableau. He leaned down, his lips finding hers once more. A slow, deep kiss that promised to unravel every last thread of her composure. His hand, warm and calloused, brushed over her thigh, making its slow, tantalizing journey upwards. Her breath caught as his fingers grazed the delicate lace of her briefs, then slipped beneath the fabric, finding the soft skin of her inner thigh. He paused there, his touch light, exquisitely tormenting, before his fingers continued their journey, ever so slowly, towards the apex of her desire. A soft moan escaped her lips as his fingertips finally found her, warm and wet and aching for his touch. He explored her with a gentle confidence, his touch both tender and knowing, eliciting shivers and gasps. The pleasure bloomed within her, a soft, insistent ache that grew with every stroke, every delicate press of his thumb. She arched her hips, silently begging for more, for a deeper connection. His lips left hers, trailing a path of fiery kisses down her jaw, along her neck, to the hollow of her throat. His teeth grazed her skin lightly, sending delicious shivers through her, making her heart pound even harder. His mouth found the sensitive curve of her shoulder, then moved lower, to the swell of her breast. He took her nipple into his mouth, suckling gently, teasing it with his tongue, and a jolt of pure ecstasy shot through her, making her gasp aloud. Her fingers tangled in his hair, holding him close, urging him on. He moved from one breast to the other, lavishing attention on each, his touch and taste driving her further and further to the brink. All the while his fingers continued their mesmerizing dance between her thighs, building the pressure, stoking the flames. Ilara felt herself dissolving, her body becoming a symphony of sensation, every nerve ending alive and humming. The world narrowed to the exquisite pleasure of his mouth, his hands, his scent, his presence. "Orion," she whispered, her voice barely a breath, the name escaping her lips unbidden. It was the first time she had spoken it aloud, and it felt right, ancient and powerful, like the constellation it evoked. He lifted his head, his eyes dark with passion, a triumphant smile gracing his lips. "My Ilara," he responded, his voice husky, "you are truly magnificent." He shifted, positioning himself between her legs, the hard warmth of him pressing against her. A delicious promise. He leaned down, capturing her gaze, his eyes burning with an intense desire that mirrored her own. "Are you ready, my love?" he asked, his voice low and urgent. She nodded, tears pricking at her eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming intensity of the moment, the sheer beauty of their connection. She wrapped her legs around his waist, pulling him closer, needing to feel him, needing to be one with him. With a slow, deliberate movement, he began to join them. She felt the exquisite pressure, the glorious stretch, as he eased into her, slowly, carefully, allowing her body to adjust, to embrace him fully. A gasp tore from her throat as he filled her completely, a sensation so profound, so utterly fulfilling that it took her breath away. They paused, connected, their bodies trembling, their eyes locked. She could feel every inch of him, the warmth, the strength, the pulsating life within her. He was deep inside her, and it felt like coming home, like finding a piece of herself she hadn't known was missing. He began to move, slowly at first, a gentle, rhythmic rock that sent shivers of pleasure through her. Her hips lifted to meet his, finding their own rhythm, a primal dance that was as old as time itself. The tempo increased, becoming more urgent, more insistent. Each thrust sent a wave of pleasure coursing through her, building, a delicious crescendo. Her moans mingled with his deeper groans, filling the hushed room. She clung to him, her nails lightly raking his broad back, her body arching with every powerful stroke. The world outside the bedroom, the city lights, the distant hum of traffic, faded into oblivion. There was only them, their bodies entwined, their souls merging in a dance of pure, unadulterated passion. The pleasure became almost unbearable, a sweet agony that pushed her to the edge. Her muscles tightened, her breath came in ragged gasps, and she felt the exquisite tension coiling within her, drawing tighter and tighter. His pace quickened, his movements becoming more forceful, more demanding, driving her higher and higher. And then, with a cry that was half gasp, half sob, Ilara shattered. A wave of pure, unadulterated ecstasy washed over her, convulsing her body, sending tremors through her very core. She clung to Orion, her face buried in his shoulder, as the pleasure rippled through her, utterly consuming. He followed her moments later, a deep, guttural groan escaping his lips as he found his own release, pouring himself into her, his body trembling with the intensity of his climax. He collapsed against her, his weight a comforting pressure, his breath ragged against her ear. They lay tangled together, spent and breathless, the aftermath of their passion settling over them like a warm, heavy blanket. The jazz music played on, a soft, soothing melody now, a gentle counterpoint to their pounding hearts. Ilara felt a profound sense of peace, a deep contentment that settled into every cell of her being. Orion stirred, lifting his head to gaze down at her, his eyes soft with affection and wonder. He brushed a stray strand of hair from her forehead, his touch infinitely tender. "My Ilara," he whispered, his voice still hoarse, "you are everything I imagined, and so much more." She smiled, a genuine radiant smile that felt like it came from the deepest part of her soul. She reached up, tracing the strong line of his jaw, feeling the warmth of his skin beneath her fingertips. "And you, Orion," she murmured, "you are magnificent." He kissed her then, a soft, lingering kiss that was no longer hungry or urgent, but filled with a deep tenderness, a silent promise of endless nights like this, of a connection that transcended the physical. He shifted, pulling her closer against him, their legs still entwined, her head resting on his chest, listening to the steady, reassuring beat of his heart. The night outside softened, the city lights seeming to dim as a pale hint of dawn began to paint the eastern sky. They lay in comfortable silence for a long time, simply holding each other, basking in the warmth of their shared intimacy, the quiet aftermath of profound connection. Ilara felt utterly safe, utterly cherished, cradled in his strong arms, her body still humming with the echoes of their passion. Eventually, sleep claimed them, a deep, peaceful slumber born of exhaustion and profound contentment. Ilara awoke to the soft glow of morning light filtering through the sheer curtains. For a moment, she was disoriented. Then the scent of his skin, the warmth of his body spooned against hers, brought the memories of the night flooding back. A soft smile touched her lips. She stretched, feeling the delicious ache in her muscles, a sweet reminder of the intensity they had shared. She turned in his arms, her eyes opening to find Orion already awake, propped up on one elbow, gazing at her with a gentle, amused expression. His dark hair was charmingly rumpled, his eyes, usually so intense, now held a soft, dreamy quality. "Good morning, sleepyhead," he whispered, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through her. He reached out, his thumbs stroking her cheekbone. "Good morning," she replied, her voice still a little husky from sleep. She leaned into his touch, feeling a warmth spread through her. "How long have you been awake?" "Long enough to watch you sleep," he confessed, a charming smirk playing on his lips. "You look even more beautiful in the morning light." A blush warmed her cheeks. "You're just saying that." "No," he said, his gaze serious. "I'm not. You are truly captivating, Ilara. Every part of you." He leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. "How are you feeling?" "Content," she breathed. The word an understatement for the profound sense of peace and joy that filled her. "More than content. I feel wonderful, Orion." He smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached his eyes. "I'm glad. I feel the same." He paused, his gaze searching hers. "Last night, it was more than I could have ever hoped for." "Me too," she admitted, her heart swelling with emotion. "It felt like destiny." He chuckled softly. "Destiny. I like that. I've always been a man who believes in a certain kind of fate, but I never imagined it would feel quite like this." He shifted, pulling her closer, his arms wrapping around her. "I don't want this to end, Ilara." "It doesn't have to," she said, her voice soft but firm. She met his gaze, her eyes shining with newfound certainty. "I don't want it to end either, Orion." He kissed her then, a long, slow kiss that was both a continuation of the night and a promise of the future. It was a kiss that spoke of tenderness, of deep affection, and of a bond that had been forged in the crucible of passion, and now glowed with the steady warmth of true connection. They spent the morning in the leisurely embrace of the penthouse, wrapped in each other's arms, talking in low whispers, sharing secrets and laughter. Orion ordered a lavish breakfast, brought to them on a silver tray, and sat on a small table by the window, overlooking the waking city. They ate fresh fruit, delicate pastries, and drank rich coffee, all while still in bed, draped in sheets, their bodies occasionally brushing, sending sparks of renewed desire through them. Ilara learned more about Orion, his passion for his work, his quiet moments of reflection, the depth of his character that lay beneath his formidable exterior. And she, in turn, found herself opening up to him in ways she hadn't anticipated, sharing her dreams, her vulnerabilities, her hopes for the future. He listened with an attentiveness that made her feel truly heard, truly understood. As the morning progressed, the city outside began to hum with the energy of a new day, but within the penthouse, time seemed to slow, existing only for them. They took a long shared shower, the warm water cascading over their bodies, his hands gliding over her skin, her fingers tracing the contours of his muscles. The intimacy of it was profound, a gentle continuation of their night, solidifying their bond with every touch. Later, dressed in soft robes, they sat on the sofa, sipping tea, the city now a vibrant tapestry beneath them. Orion held her hand, his thumb tracing lazy circles on her palm. "Ilara," he began, his voice serious, "I know we've only known each other a short time, but what we shared last night, it feels monumental. I don't say this lightly, but I feel something truly extraordinary with you." Her heart fluttered. "I feel it too, Orion. It's overwhelming, in the best possible way." He turned to face her fully, his gaze intense. "I want to explore this, Ilara. I want to see where this journey takes us. I want to wake up next to you again and again. I want to discover every secret you hold, and share every part of myself with you." She felt a wave of emotion wash over her, a profound sense of hope and joy. This was what she had longed for, perhaps subconsciously, all her life. Not just passion, but connection. Not just fleeting desire, but a deep, abiding bond. "I want that too, Orion," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "More than anything." He smiled. A slow, breathtaking smile that lit up his eyes. He leaned in, kissing her softly, deeply, a kiss that sealed their unspoken vows. "This isn't just a destination, Ilara," he whispered against her lips. "It's the beginning of a magnificent adventure." She nestled closer to him, feeling the solid warmth of his body, the steady beat of his heart. The city spread out before them, bustling and alive. But in that moment, Ilara knew her world had found its true center. The journey had indeed truly begun, and with Orion by her side, she was ready for every delicious secret, every breathtaking vista, every profound joy it held. The silken lace was gone, replaced by the soft embrace of his arms, and the cool night had given way to the warm promise of a dazzling future. She was home.